Europe's energy turning point. In recent years, Europe has faced one of the most profound energy and economic shifts since World War II. While the Russia-Ukraine conflict that began in February 2022 acted as the immediate spark, the kindling for this crisis had been gathering for decades. The continent had woven a complex web of dependency on Russian fossil fuels, particularly natural gas delivered through major arteries like the Nord Stream pipelines. This long-standing reliance, once viewed as a cornerstone of economic cooperation, left the European Union, EU, dangerously exposed when the West imposed sweeping sanctions. Moscow retaliated by weaponizing its energy exports, turning off the taps and plunging the continent into uncertainty. The economic fallout was immediate and historic. Energy costs for households and businesses skyrocketed, fueling a wave of inflation not seen in a generation. By the spring of 2022, fears of deindustrialization gripped the continent, with energy-intensive sectors like chemical and steel manufacturing facing potential shutdowns. To replace the lost Russian supply, Europe was forced to buy liquefied natural gas on the volatile global market at exorbitant prices. This caused Europe's energy trade deficit to balloon, topping an unprecedented $400 billion in 2022, according to the European Commission. What were once stable imports had been transformed into potent tools of geopolitical leverage. Russia, which had supplied nearly 40% of Europe's gas in 2021, systematically choked off deliveries, sending shockwaves through global markets. Wholesale natural gas prices surged to levels 5 to 10 times higher than their pre-crisis averages, thrusting energy security to the forefront of national survival. As the Financial Times noted, by mid-2022, Europe's energy landscape resembled a high-stakes chessboard. Each nation was forced to make urgent moves, from securing costly LNG cargoes to reconsidering nuclear power, in a desperate scramble to keep the lights on and factories running. Germany, the continent's industrial engine, was hit hardest. Its entire post-Cold War economic model, built on the foundation of cheap Russian gas, began to crumble. Industrial icons like chemical giant BASF were forced to dramatically scale back production of ammonia, a key ingredient for fertilizers, threatening food supply chains. Steel foundries and metal producers, the backbone of German manufacturing, saw their energy bills skyrocket, rendering them uncompetitive. Italy, another major industrial power, found itself in a similar bind. Its press decried the nation's predicament, declaring it was being held hostage by its reliance on Russian gas. The government in Rome scrambled, dispatching ministers to secure emergency energy deals with Algeria and Azerbaijan to keep its system afloat. Faced with a continent-wide crisis, Brussels launched Repower EU, an ambitious program to fundamentally reshape Europe's energy landscape. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen admitted Europe had to achieve in just 5 years what had originally been planned over a decade. The plan rested on 3 core pillars. First, rapidly diversifying gas suppliers by courting new partners. Second, a massive push for energy efficiency, encouraging everything from home insulation to reduced industrial consumption. And third, a dramatic acceleration of the green transition, fast-tracking permits for wind and solar projects. To fund this monumental effort, over $300 billion in grants and loans was mobilized, earmarked for new infrastructure, upgraded power grids and pioneering green hydrogen projects. But these were long-term solutions to an immediate bleeding wound. LNG terminals, cross-border pipelines and sprawling wind farms cannot be built overnight. Meanwhile, the economic pain was felt in days. The soaring cost of energy imports blew a massive hole in the EU's finances, pushing its trade balance into a record deficit of nearly $400 billion in 2022. Inflation surged into double digits in several states, eroding savings. To prevent a chaotic free-for-all where member states bid against each other, Brussels launched a joint gas purchasing platform. This aggregate EU mechanism allowed the bloc to act as a single powerful buyer, leveraging its market size to secure better deals with the US, Qatar, and Norway. By 2023, the strategy showed results, but with a complex new dynamic. The United States had decisively overtaken all rivals to become Europe's top gas supplier, with its LNG exports to the continent nearly doubling. This shift, however, created a stark transatlantic divide. American industry thrived, powered by cheap domestic natural gas, while European manufacturers struggled with persistently higher energy prices that threatened their global competitiveness. The new system was also fragile. Any disruption, a maintenance shutdown at a Norwegian gas field, or a logistical bottleneck for LNG tankers, sent fresh waves of volatility through the market. For ordinary citizens, this translated into soaring electricity and heating bills, sparking widespread protests from Rome to Berlin. A Reuters report highlighted the devastating human cost, estimating that over 35 million Europeans had fallen into energy poverty, forced to choose between heating their homes and buying food. Despite the turmoil, Europe's climate commitments remained unchanged. The EU stayed firm on cutting emissions 55% by 2030 and reaching carbon neutrality by 2050, viewing the crisis as a catalyst for its Green Deal. Renewables hit record highs in 2023, accounting for 40% of Europe's energy mix. Wind and solar alone supplied more than one-fifth of total electricity. Yet this green surge exposed a critical vulnerability: intermittency. This reliability gap forced a difficult conversation, pushing several nations to revisit nuclear energy as a stable, low-carbon backup, a significant reversal of post-Fukushima policies. Energy conservation also became a core part of the strategy. The European Commission introduced rules to reduce peak-hour electricity use, leading to public campaigns and visible measures like dimming city landmarks. Behind the scenes, the planning was more drastic. Confidential reports explored rationing industrial output during extreme shortages. Although never enacted, the plans underscored how fragile the system had become and how seriously leaders were taking the threat of blackouts. Paradoxically, the crisis accelerated reforms. As Politico observed, Europe, once comfortable with cheap Russian gas, was forced to adapt to a harsher reality. The massive investment in new infrastructure, from LNG terminals to renewable grids, created a new cost baseline. Prices today are lower than the 2022 peak, but remain structurally higher than before. Analysts warn Europe has entered an era of expensive energy, with profound implications for its industrial competitiveness and household budgets. This structural shift has deep implications. Goldman Sachs analysts caution that Europe's competitiveness now hinges on whether it can secure affordable, reliable power. If not, industries may relocate to the US, China, or other low-cost regions. For Brussels, energy policy is no longer just an economic or climate issue. It is geopolitical, existential, and tied to Europe's future cohesion. The next decade will be decisive. A successful transition could make the EU a world leader in sustainable growth, but hesitation or missteps risk eroding its industrial base and fueling social unrest. What is certain is that the old energy model has collapsed, and the new one is still under construction. As Deutsche Welle aptly noted, Europe's energy crisis is its moment of truth, and its outcome will shape the continent for generations.